right, well, Garrett, join us for this conversation. We'll bring in and continue Mayor of Chicago, Democrat Rahm Emanuel. Mayor Emanuel has a new piece in The Atlantic magazine entitled How Not to Lose to Donald Trump. We need this article, in which he argues that a winning 2020 candidate needs three things: authenticity, credibility, and viability. And he writes in part this: Earth to Democrats. Republicans are telling you something when they gleefully schedule votes on proposals like the Green New Deal, Medicare for All, and a 70% marginal tax rate. When they're more eager to vote on the Democratic agenda than we are, we should take a step back and ask ourselves whether we are inadvertently letting the political battle play out on their turf rather than our own. If Trump's only hope for winning a second term turns on his ability to paint us as socialists, we shouldn't play to type. This campaign is going to be less about ideological purity and litmus tests and more about how voters size up the candidate's personal qualities. Voters have to be able to imagine and envision the candidate in the Oval Office. As Democrats, our first, second, and third priorities should be to produce a candidate who will appeal to the widest swath of both moderate and progressive voters. Until January 21st, 2021, we need to make sure that everything else is set aside. So, Rahm, who's doing that so far? Because we have a lot of freshmen in Congress who are making a lot of noise and getting a lot of attention. And if you look at their standing politically, I mean, they haven't been around for a while. Their districts that they won in, they won by a couple thousand votes. They don't necessarily represent the mainstream, but yet they're getting a lot of play.
Yeah, I mean, I think you brought up, they are getting a lot of play. It doesn't mean they represent everybody. Look, they won their district. They represent their district. They bring energy. That's the positive. My one recommendation to Democrats, if you look back in the last 25 years, one of the most important things President Clinton did was pass his first budget. And there was a senator from Nebraska who was the key vote. When President Obama passed health care, the most significant social policy since Medicare and Medicaid, a Nebraska senator was the key vote in the U.S. Senate. So it is important to have the energy that some of the freshman members are bringing. But you should remember, this is a big country with a lot of diversity, and we want Democrats from all parts of the country. And I don't think you should be putting any of your majority members that won in marginal districts where they have to be responding to what a person out of Queens or out of Minnesota, suburban Minneapolis, is saying. They should be able to be talking about what they're legislating on, prescription drug cost control, transportation bills, what they're doing for veterans. That is the core issues we won on. Get to what you won on, because that's how you're going to win in 2020. It should not be about issues that distract from what you won on. And you had a pledge to the voters, and that's what we have to do. That's number one. Number two, a lot of what, Donald Trump told us what he was going to do. He's going to call us socialists. Don't serve up slow pitches over the center of the plate, acting to type. I think it's a real mistake. And then the candidates through the process, the third point I'd make, through the presidential process, will reveal themselves. It is less about ideology, although ideas matter in politics, and it is more about the character of the person. And there are seminal moments that will reveal that character.
Okay, rapid fire, 10-second answers. Caddy, Robert, Garrett, David. Caddy, go.
There's a lot of authenticity. There's a lot of credibility in the field that we have. Who has the viability to win in Pennsylvania, Arizona, and Ohio?
Who is it?
Who is it?
It's a good question, but you're not going to know until this process plays itself out. And that's, you couldn't tell Ronald Reagan until he said, I paid for this microphone. You couldn't tell Bill Clinton until he took the punches of Gennifer Flowers, the draft letter, and showed that he was a comeback hit. You need a moment that reveals the stamina and the steel of that person.
Robert.
Mayor, you served in the White House with Vice President Biden. Is he the man, the candidate for this moment?
Look, Joe has a tremendous to offer, and I would actually, slightly on the coverage, I would say he's doing exactly right. He shouldn't actually, he doesn't need name ID. He shouldn't run too early. He should actually, as he did when he went to NATO, spoke in a large way about America's role in the world. I don't know what he's going to say today to the firefighters. As soon as he becomes a candidate, everything will be judged that way. He should rise above it, talk in very broad terms about the America he wants to see, but not in the tone of restoring but in building to the future. My only concern about Joe, and I think he would not, I wouldn't rush to being a candidate. The concern I have for Joe is it looks a little too restoration and not enough change.
Okay, Garrett.
We've seen with Elizabeth Warren how the president is going to savage these candidates as they rise up. How do you think candidates should respond? I mean, should they get into the mud with the president, or should they try to take the high road?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, it's you're looking for one ticket. I wouldn't say that. One tool in the toolbox. There are going to be times where you're going to take your chop right back at them. There are other times you're going to take a punch and then go right above them. So I think the idea that you're going to find one tool and that's going to define the toolbox is a mistake. There are times, in fact, you want to take it to Donald Trump, and there are other times, as Nancy Pelosi just said, you just want to flick them away. And so I would not say that you should think, oh, you got to go down, you got to go high. No, you got to do what you got to do to win. And sometimes it's going to be high, sometimes it's going to be low.
How do you think that impeachment argument, the comments by Nancy Pelosi, will play into this? I mean, is that something that Democrats who are running should be talking about?
No. In general, less investigation and more legislating right now. And I would say to this, if there's a moment in time that it warrants itself, and you got to go back to like Nixon, the Democrats saw it as an opportunity and the Republicans saw him as a liability. We're not there yet. And so I would just say there's a lot to investigate. Mueller's going to give us, Mueller's the beginning of a process, not the end. And this is going to go, energy is going to go to what's going on in New York. Congress will take the document, and it should always look, feel, and taste as totally professional. We're just going to follow the facts.
David Ignatius.
Mr. Mayor, so the striking thing in the polls right now is how strong Bernie Sanders is. It's surprising. He's gaining relative to where he was in January. What does that tell you? And is Bernie going to run out of gas? Is this a phenomenon that's going to keep growing, or is there a natural limit?
Look, you guys want to predict what's going to happen, and the great thing about politics is you can't do that. Okay, he's growing now. When the field gets filled out and people start going through the process of both ideas, meeting voters, the retail of politics, and people, and one of the great things about campaigns is they reveal something. And voters are going to lift the hood, check the oil, kick the tires, move the mirrors around, see what the seats feel like, and that's what they're in the process. And I would not get too hyperventilating about where we are today. The real question is where we're going to be about.
Hey, Ron, we're not hyperventilating. Seriously.
No, let me say this. When you said like Beto O'Rourke doesn't need to rush.
Okay,
That's
exactly.
possible, but we're all from the same mother, so it's possible.
Exactly, it makes sense, except you're not cursing. So here's the thing. Bernie's winning. Everyone underestimates him. So we can learn from the past. You're right, we don't know what's going to happen. I think we all learned that. But if Biden stepped out, it looks like support would go to him, according to polls. Has he been underestimated?
Well, here's the reason I say what I said is, look, I've been in 2 presidentials. If you looked at this point, you guys were seeing Hillary as a front runner to Barack Obama. If you look at this point, you were all waiting for Bill Bradley, Mario Cuomo, or Jay Rockefeller to get in, and Bill Clinton was a governor from Arkansas that was running for vice president. So the question I would just say is, take a deep breath. Don't try to tell the voters what's going to happen. Let them tell us what they think. No, you wouldn't do that. That would be so out of character.
It would. Okay, President Trump, actually, Joe does say what's going to happen, and unfortunately, he's been right. President Trump tweeted the following moments ago, which appears to be a quote from a Jexodus spokeswoman who was on Fox earlier. He says, Jewish people are leaving the Democratic Party. We saw a lot of anti-Israel policies start under the Obama administration, and it got worse and worse. There's anti-Semitism in the Democratic Party. They don't care about Israel or the Jewish people. Ram, go.
Well, first of all, there's moderate Republicans leaving the Republican Party, as we just saw in 2018. Here's what I would say to Donald Trump. One, you're the person that ran the ad with money and a Star of David behind it. You're the person that ran an ad that said the big international bankers, and you had nothing but Jewish people and images of them behind it. So when it comes to using symbols and the characters of anti-Semitism, I don't take anything from President Trump, who played in a dark place. And then when you said there was a moral equivalency between bigots in Virginia and people fighting bigotry, you do not give a lecture when it comes to anti-Semitism, because you actually have a moral challenge when it comes to understanding and the level of hatred associated with anti-Semitism, because you played in dark space.
Mayor Rahm Emanuel, great to have you on the show. Really appreciate it. Good to see you.
Thanks. Thank you.
Take care. And Garrett Haake, thank you as well. Great to have you on the show. Up next, Robert Mueller, House Democrats, and the Southern District of New York, all investigating President Trump or his businesses. Now we can add New York's Attorney General to that list, too. That's next on Morning Joe.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.